My daughter Lily's 7th birthday party was supposed to be perfect. Balloons filled the backyard. A big pink cake sat on the table. Kids were running around with party hats and sticky hands from too much candy. Lily was laughing so hard she could barely keep the crown on her head. Seeing her happy was the only thing that mattered to me. Unfortunately, my in-laws were there. My husband Mark's parents had never liked me. From the very beginning, they believed I had married into their family for one reason: money. Mark's family owned several successful businesses, and his parents made sure everyone knew it. At every family event, there were subtle comments, little jokes, small insults hidden behind polite smiles. "You're lucky Mark takes care of everything," my mother-in-law once told me. Another time my father-in-law laughed and said, "Some people marry well instead of working hard. Mark always told me to ignore them. They're just old-fashioned," he said. So I tried. But on Lily's birthday, things went further than usual. While the kids were playing outside, the adults gathered near the patio table. Mark stepped away for a few minutes to help Lily open gifts. That's when my mother-in-law leaned closer to me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You know," she said coldly, "everyone in this family knows what you really are." I frowned. "What do you mean?" My father-in-law smirked. Then my mother-in-law said the words quietly enough that the other guests couldn't hear. "You're just a leech." For a moment, I didn't react. I had heard plenty of insults from them before, but saying that at my daughter's birthday party, that was different. "You live off our son's success," she continued. "Without him, you'd have nothing." My father-in-law nodded. "People like you always find someone else to pay the bills." I slowly set my drink down on the table. Part of me wanted to argue. Another part of me wanted to walk away. But before I could say anything, a voice suddenly came from behind us. And the moment those words were spoken, my in-laws' expressions changed completely. "A leech." The voice came from directly behind us. I turned around. Mark was standing there. And judging by the look on his face, he had heard everything. My mother-in-law immediately straightened in her chair. "Oh, Mark, we were just—" "Just what?" he asked calmly. My father-in-law cleared his throat. "We were having a conversation." Mark didn't look convinced. He walked over and stood beside me. "What exactly were you saying to my wife?" he asked. For a moment, neither of them answered. Finally, my mother-in-law forced a small laugh. "Oh, please don't be dramatic. We were just teasing." Mark's expression didn't change. Calling someone a leech isn't teasing. The table went quiet. A few relatives nearby had started paying attention now. My father-in-law sighed impatiently. "Look, son," he said, "we've always been honest with you." Mark crossed his arms. "Then be honest now." My father-in-law gestured slightly toward me. "We just think it's obvious who carries the financial weight in this marriage." My mother-in-law nodded. "You've worked hard to build your career," she added, "and she's been very comfortable because of it." For a second, Mark didn't respond. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. Not an angry laugh. An amused one. My in-laws looked confused. "What's funny?" my mother-in-law asked. Mark looked at me, then back at them. "You still think I'm the one paying for everything?" he asked. My father-in-law frowned. "Of course you are." Mark shook his head slowly. "You really don't know anything about our finances, do you?" The table had gone completely silent now. Several relatives were openly listening. My mother-in-law frowned. "What are you talking about?" Mark placed a hand gently on my shoulder. Then he said something that made both of his parents freeze. "The house we live in—" He paused. "She bought it." My father-in-law blinked. "What? The car I drive?" Mark continued. "She paid for that too." My mother-in-law stared at me. "That's ridiculous." Mark smiled slightly. Actually, most of the money in our household comes from her. Now the confusion around the table was obvious. My father-in-law looked at me carefully. You expect us to believe that? Mark shrugged. You could always ask what she does for a living. My mother-in-law scoffed. She doesn't have a real job. For the first time during the conversation, I finally spoke. Well, I said calmly, that's not exactly true. And just a few seconds later, something happened at the party that made my in-laws realize exactly how wrong they had been. My mother-in-law folded her arms. Oh, really? She said. Then what exactly do you do? Before I could answer, someone walked into the backyard. Excuse me, a voice said politely. Everyone turned. A man in a dark suit was standing near the patio gate, holding a folder. He looked around for a moment before spotting me. Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt the party, he said, but you asked me to stop by today with the documents. I immediately recognized him. It was Daniel, my business attorney. I had completely forgotten he planned to drop off the paperwork that afternoon. My mother-in-law frowned. Who is that? My lawyer, I said calmly. That answer made several relatives raise their eyebrows. Daniel walked over and handed me the folder. Everything is finalized. He said, the investors signed this morning. I nodded. Thank you. My father-in-law looked confused. What investors? Daniel glanced at him politely. Oh, he said, assuming everyone already knew. The investment group that just purchased 30% of her company. The patio suddenly felt very quiet. My mother-in-law blinked. 30% of what company? Daniel looked slightly surprised. You didn't tell them? I smiled slightly. Apparently not. He opened the folder and handed me one of the documents. The final valuation is listed on the last page, he said. My father-in-law leaned forward, curious despite himself. What valuation? Daniel answered matter-of-factly. The company is currently valued at $42 million. The number hung in the air. My mother-in-law stared at him. $42 million? Daniel nodded. Yes, and with the new investors coming in, it will likely increase within the next year. My father-in-law slowly turned toward me. You own this company? I founded it, I replied calmly. My mother-in-law looked completely stunned now. But Mark is the one with the big career. Mark laughed softly. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Daniel closed the folder. Congratulations again, he said to me. This is a huge step for the company. Then he politely excused himself and left the party. For several seconds, no one said anything. Finally, my father-in-law cleared his throat. So you're saying... Mark finished the sentence for him. My wife isn't the leech. He smiled slightly. She's the reason we're all financially comfortable. The party continued, but the atmosphere had completely changed. My in-laws barely spoke to me for the rest of the afternoon. Not because they were angry, because they were embarrassed. For years, they judged me based on their assumptions instead of the truth. They believed success had to look a certain way. But the real lesson that day was simple. Never underestimate someone just because their success doesn't look the way you expect. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding the strongest position.